Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Throat Punch Thursday.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Who's ready?
It's Throat Punch Thursday, bitch.
That's right, folks. It's Throat Punch Thursday, and we are here at NRA Annual Meeting and Exhibits 2026 in Houston, Texas. Now, it's interesting because it's a little quieter here than it has been all day because everyone's kind of getting all of their stuff all set up, and I'm here, and I figured since I got my stuff set up, why don't I go ahead and make sure to do the show today? So it's going to be a little quick because I'm supposed to be out of here relatively quickly. But we're going to have a good time talking about stuff. Now, mind you, we're going to be doing the show today, or I'm doing the show today, and I'll be doing the show tomorrow from here at NRA. But if we're going to be interviewing people with 2A News, so if you want to follow those interviews, you can either go to my personal YouTube channel or Facebook page, or you can go over to 2A News. That's right, 2A News. And you can check out all of the interviews that we're going to be doing over this weekend. Going to be a lot of folks. The NRA has really gone out of their way to make sure that we have access to folks to talk about the Second Amendment, to talk about the NRA and stuff that's going on here. And we'll talk a little bit about all the fun stuff that is taking place here at the NRA. But before we do, we're going to do as we usually do, and we're going to start off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. Now we're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. Hitman Industries makes rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. Just go to hitmanindustries.net. We got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan, well, that's what Ronald Reagan called them anyway. They are the largest and fastest growing grassroots conservative organization in the state of California. Why don't you check them out today at cragop.org. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at Hog Holsters. That's hogholsters.com, HAWG holsters.com. They like helping Americans wear guns. By the way, if you go there and you use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, you're going to get your Hog holster on discount today. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. Folks, they have a huge selection of products. They have the most competitive pricing, in particular if we're talking about group sales. And they have really, really good customer service. Check them out today, uscombatgear.com. All right, getting into today's news. As I said, we're here at the NRA annual meetings. This is where it's kind of to showcase all of the work that the NRA is doing, not just legislatively, not just politically, but also in terms of training and education and helping to make the exercise of our Second Amendment rights a thing here in these United States. And here was an interview that I found. By the way, we're here in Houston. So this was an interview that they did with a local affiliate here a local Fox affiliate here in Houston. It'll give you really kind of a feel of what goes on here at NRA.
In Houston this weekend, bringing gun owners, experts, and lawmakers together at the George R. Brown Convention Center. And I have NRA Executive Director John Comerford joining me now. Thanks for coming in and welcome back to H-Town.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here in Houston.
Well, one of the big headlines this year is that President Trump is not going to be in attendance as he has in years past. Have you been able to talk to him and ask him why?
Well, we're regularly in conversation with the White House and his staff. They're incredibly supportive of the Second Amendment and our membership, particularly here in a state like Texas, where we have hundreds of thousands of members. But he's a little busy right now, as some may see on the news with world events. And he didn't make it last year either to our event in Atlanta. So he's focused. He can't run again for president, so he's focused on working in the White House.
Will there be a video message from him at all, do you know?
People have to wait and see.
Okay, so there's a little teaser, I guess. All right. So as far as the NRA's message for 2026, the theme is a new day. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a whole new team at NRA. We're committed to good governance. We're committed to confidence in our firearms industry and our members, and making sure that gun owners have a voice across the country. And things are pretty good here in Texas, but we have a critically important Senate race here in this fall that we need to work on.
Mm-hmm. There have been a lot of difficult headlines that you guys have had to fight regarding scandals and so forth. How are you fighting back against these headlines and getting people to want to join the NRA, given that revenue's down, right? Membership has been down.
Well, look, we have President Trump in the White House, so when things are good, things are bad for us financially. That's okay. That's our job. My job is to work myself out of a job, essentially, by protecting the Second Amendment. But lawfare was waged against the NRA just like it was President Trump. We were in the courtroom next door to President Trump in New York City with the New York Attorney General. All that's behind us. We came out of that. We came out of it successful, and we're going to be stronger because of it.
A huge part of the NRA's mission is education. And
Yes.
I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but what takeaway do you want people to take with them when you talk about education?
Look, we're the nation's oldest civil rights organization. We were founded based on marksmanship. So education, training, and firearms safety is a critical component to what we do. We have more than 125,000 instructors that have trained more than 10 million firearm owners in safe gun handling. So that's our core business operation that we run, including Eddie the Eagle, which has trained more than 10 million children on what to do if they encounter a firearm, which is stop, don't touch, and tell an adult.
Very good. As far as technical innovations with your convention, when it comes to the firearms and any sort of exhibit that you think are really going to be drawn to this weekend, what would you say is going to be the highlight?
Well, individuals in Houston can come down to the George R. Brown Convention Center and see the latest and greatest items in the firearms industry. It's a really low-cost event for families. Look, we know costs are going up. Affordability is a question nationwide, but it's a great event to come downtown, and with Fleet Week in town, you get to see a lot of our sailors out there who are protecting this country. So we encourage all families to come down, see the latest and greatest, and it's not just firearms, it's lots of outdoor equipment as well.
Starts tomorrow,
yes,
right? Runs 3 days
yes.
at the GRB, and pricing and all that, I'm sure, is on the website.
Yes, it is, at nraam.org, and you can get in for as little as $10.
Okay, thank you so much, John, for stopping by Houston's Morning Show. Appreciate it.
So that was actually just this morning that he came on and did that. Interesting things, and he's the executive director. He's gonna stay out of a lot of the political stuff, but he is gonna get into some stuff. I mean, let's face it, NRA right now is dealing with challenges, right? We realize that there's the fact that there was lawfare against them, that the Letitia James literally went after them. And sadly, they gave her some stuff to go after. There were a lot of people who were involved and engaged with the NRA at senior levels who were using the work of the NRA in order to enrich themselves. And really, here's the thing: I got none problem with people making money. I don't. In particular, I have no problem with them getting paid for what they do. But in particular, as long as it's adding value to the organization and it's not being abused or manipulated, it's not being done behind closed doors, and that's unfortunately a lot of what has happened. So there's a lot of changes that are taking place right now, and when we do some of our interviews, we're going to be talking with some of the NRA board members, some of the Reform board members, and we're going to be talking about the work that they're doing to get the NRA back on track. Because you've probably noticed they're not as involved in elections as they have been. They're not as involved in politics and on political issues, or at least you don't see them visibly as they have. Now, that's made the room for other organizations like the Second Amendment Foundation in the courtrooms, or GOA, or the Firearms Policy Coalition, have all kind of stepped up their game, to kind of fill that vacuum and that void. But let's be honest, the marketing still, when you think gun rights, you still think NRA. Now, one thing I did note that I found to be kind of interesting, we talked about how there's going to be a Senate race right here in Texas. It's going to be very, very important. You notice he didn't mention a candidate. Now, if they're planning on supporting Conyer, now John Conyer is better than Tallarico, the faux Christian Democrat. Way better than him on the Second Amendment. And by the way, that's not saying much. But he has not been a strong advocate of the Second Amendment. He's been, I would say, C-, if not D, in terms of his support of the Second Amendment, in terms of supporting the sorts of things that real supporters of the Second Amendment, people who believe in the right to keep and bear arms, would really like to see. He's been more of a deal maker. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that he mentioned it, but he didn't mention where exactly they were going to wind up. I think what they're hoping that Paxton wins, because if Paxton wins, I think we have, regardless, I think Paxton is going to beat Tallarico here in Texas. But even with that, I think, I think it depends on which way you want to go. If you want someone who's more established and probably is going to raise more money and probably have a better chance at crossover independent voters, that's probably Conyers, but you're also going to have to accept the fact that he's not really pro-Second Amendment. He's not really an advocate of the Second Amendment. If you go with Paxton, you have someone who's much more solid on the Second Amendment, but who comes with baggage and is going to have a hard time getting a crossover vote. I think in either case, I think Paxton would win. I think he would be just fine. So anyway, that'll be something that's interesting that's going on. The other thing is, once again, they talked about the lawfare, but he didn't talk about the fact that a lot of that was earned. Oh, by the way, did you notice how when she talked about what's the stuff that's coming up, what's the new neat stuff, you notice how he pivoted to encouraging them to come out, right? I like that. I like the fact that he stayed on message. He's like, look, we need to get people to come out. And trust me, folks, if you are here and you are in Houston, it is definitely worth coming out. It is to see all the stuff. And the thing I like about this versus SHOT is SHOT, you get to see the new stuff, but you can't buy anything. Now, mind you, I can't necessarily buy any firearms because I'm not in California, but there's lots of cool gadgets, there's lots of cool accessories, there's lots of gear that you can buy here that even if you wanted to buy the gear at SHOT, you can't, because that's really the only people doing any buying are people who are distributors, people who are FFLs, or people who own stores and are looking to put in their purchases for the year. So anyway, it's a fun time. There's going to be tons of really cool people here. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it because we're going to be interviewing some folks as well. So anyway, good times will be ahead by all. All right, let's go ahead and move along. Let's see what we got here. Oh, our next story, California Democrats have introduced a bill that will make it so that it will be very, very difficult for people to do investigative journalism, right? Like when you have these NGOs, these nonprofit organizations, or these these entities that are receiving federal dollars, that are receiving government dollars, or are working in the medical field and doing things that they're not supposed to do. Like what the gentleman, his name was literally just there in my head. But things like what he exposed here in not just here in California, but in Minnesota. I mean, there's a whole huge big deal going on right now in Minnesota that he helped expose by going to, the Quality Leering Center and revealing the fact that so many of those folks who are supposed to be providing daycare or Medicare services or hospice services aren't doing it. They're literally just collecting dollars, billions of dollars from the state and federal governments. Then he came to California here and did the same thing. Well, some of the legislators here don't like that he did that. And so they're going to make it so that folks aren't going to be able to do that. And here's a brief description of what the legislation does. And this is over there. This is Laura Ingram over at Fox News talking a little bit about it.
Again, quote, immigration service providers. I know what that means. Lets people keep addresses confidential, ban sharing photos. Victim can seek up to $4,000 in damages, maybe more. Nick, I used to practice a little bit of this law. I don't think this is going to pass constitutional muster. It sounds like something you'd expect in Europe or maybe Canada.
Well, when has California cared anything about the Constitution, right? They've already eliminated the Second Amendment, so may as well eliminate the First Amendment out there as well. And they're trying to act like, oh, they're serious about removing fraud out there. No, what they're doing is, instead of eliminating the fraud, they're eliminating the people that are trying to expose
Report
the
on the fraud.
That's the goal,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's a great point. Remember, it was the free speech movement that kicked off at Berkeley in California. So much for that. That's all out the window, Nick. We were both in Minneapolis together. It's great to see you tonight, my friend.
So the bill was introduced by Mia Bonta. Mia Bonta is the wife of the Attorney General. And basically, as noted here in the California Globe, it's a violation of the Second Amendment, as I believe she just pointed out. Let's go ahead and read a little bit. It says, freedom of the press, which protects the right to obtain, and publish information or opinions without government censorship or fear of punishment, whether or not the government finds the material offensive or disagrees with it. Free speech enables people to obtain information from a diversity of sources, make decisions, and communicate those decisions to the government. But that never stops the totalitarian left. Democrats in Sacramento are once again pushing an unconstitutional bill which clearly will violate the First Amendment, but this one is so bad it's getting national attention. As the Globe reported on Monday, California Democrats are trying to pass a bill to criminalize investigative journalists for violating, quote, privacy for immigration support services providers. That should say illegal immigration. California Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, a Republican from San Diego, is slamming state Democrats for voting to advance a controversial new law, Assembly Bill 2624 by Assemblywoman Mia Bonta, a Democrat from Oakland, to silence citizen journalists and shield taxpayer-funded organizations from public scrutiny. Now, this is going back to this story. AB 2624 is perhaps the most egregious violation of the First Amendment I've seen in Sacramento, and I have firsthand industry with the California legislature violating the First Amendment after having my Capitol Press credentials revoked because Democrats didn't like what I was reporting. This was, by the way, this is being written by Katie Grimes, the editor over there at the California Globe. I mean, let's be honest. We knew that the Second Amendment in California is treated like the redheaded stepchild. I mean, it's a right, but it's not a right. So it was only going to be, a matter of time before the First Amendment became a victim as well. And that's exactly what we see going on here. They don't want the truth coming out. And here's the thing. They know that there is a boatload of fraud here in California, or there in California. They know it exists. They know it's out there. They know that this guy basically discovered just the camel's nose under the tent. And what they want to do is they want to make it more difficult for these folks to be able to expose it. Because they're not going to investigate it. They're not. They don't care. In their attitude, they would rather give away $1 million. They would rather give out $1 million as opposed to discover or keep. They would rather give out $1 million in fraud money, right? In fraud spending, as long as it doesn't cause them to decrease $1 single dollar of legitimate giving. And they say that, well, no, because some of these things, what they're going to do is they're going to chill. They're going to make it so that people aren't, these organizations are not going to be able to get government money, or they're not going to seek the government money because they're going to be afraid of getting this level of scrutiny. And so they're not going to be meeting the needs of the people. Well, when we're finding out that billions of dollars are being wasted, I mean, so far what's been uncovered is hundreds of millions, and that's with little to no effort. This is going to be an opportunity for them to go after. Anyway, this bill is not going to pass constitutional muster. I guarantee you. And I will also guarantee you this. The Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Justice will be leading the charge to have this law overturned should it get passed. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. Anyway, it's going to be a big fight because they're not really, once again, they're not really interested in the First Amendment. They're not really interested in protecting the First Amendment. They're more interested in going after you and I, in shutting us up. That's really what they're interested in. Well, justice, I mean, if we know that justice really is not what they're concerned about, then why would they be interested in justice in our public schools? Well, guess what? They're not. So one of the things we learned that has become a thing in public schools, and I know this because I am a school board member, so I've dealt with a lot of this stuff, but there's this thing called restorative justice, right? And the problem with quote unquote restorative justice is that it's not really justice, right? It's about basically what restorative justice does is it takes both the victim and the victimizer and puts them on the same level playing field. And what it does is it tells bullies that, well, you know, you can really pretty much, if you bully somebody, if you harm somebody, if you beat somebody up, you don't really have to face any real consequences. You just have to look them in the face and appear to be sorry, and that'll be enough. Anyway, so this is a story over at the Washington Free Beacon, and the reason why they include the term moderate is because people keep talking about how moderate Spanberger is or was, but I haven't seen her do a moderate thing since she's gotten in. All she's done is radical left. All she's passed is radical leftist stuff. All she's done is promoted trans ideology. All she's done is work to increase taxes and fees. All she's worked to do is to limit your fundamental right to keep and bear arms. That's all she has done. That's all she has supported. Anyway, it says here, moderate governor Abigail Spanberg signs bill forcing Virginia schools to consider restorative disciplinary practices before suspending students. It says here, moderate Virginia Governor Spanberger signed a bill into law from her Democratic colleagues in the state legislature that forbids state public schools from suspending or expelling a student until they consider restorative disciplinary practices like peer mediation or restorative circle. Schools that choose not to deploy such practices must file a report explaining why they imposed exclusionary discipline rather than an evidence-based restorative disciplinary practice. None of these things are supported by evidence. Absolutely none of them. It's all quack science. Anyway, the bill introduced by Democratic State Representative Dolores McQuinn states that no, quote, public elementary or secondary school student may be suspended, expelled, or excluded from attendance at a school unless the school first considers at least one evidence-based restorative disciplinary practice. Examples of such practices listed in the bill include mentoring, a peer jury, peer mediation, a post-conflict resolution program, a preventative program, a restorative circle, and any other disciplinary practice that fits the following parameters. Establishes and supports goals that increase connection to community and restores relationships, builds empathy, and ensures that all perspectives are considered, addresses the needs of those harmed, and promotes healing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's a bunch of hooey. Because in the end, what it tells them what it tells young people is, well, you know what, if I don't really if I decide I want to do something to somebody, it's not going to be taken seriously. I'm going to be treated like a victim, which we know they already do because they believe that the people, they're already letting criminals out of jail. They're already they're already decided that we're going to take things that were serious crimes and we're going to call them not serious crimes. We're going to take things that they considered to be not serious crimes, we're going to not call them not crimes, and then we're going to let these criminals out on the street, and then guess what? Crime goes up. And so now you're teaching young people that there are going to be no real consequences for their negative actions, and so we're just going to let them back out. We're just, sometimes you use suspensions because somebody needs to be removed because they are a danger to others. And I can tell you right now, there are a ton of classroom teachers out there who recognize that doing this stuff is going to be a problem. And it's going to cause a problem in the classroom. It's going to make kids, because here's the other thing, folks. If you can't count on the authorities to institute or to mete out justice, then people are going to seek justice on their own. That's just the way that it is. If the government or if whoever's in charge does not allow people to receive judgment, justice, they will seek justice on their own. There is no doubt that will be a consequence. All right, lastly but not least, I saw this, and there was a video put out by a guy named Chris Rufo. You probably remember him. We talked a lot about him. I mean, we're always reporting on stuff that he's done. He's a citizen journalist who's really kind of exposing a lot of the woke ideology that's taking place. This was a video, and this is part of a piece that he did talking about illegal immigrants coming to California because they can get free sex changes. Yes.
What is your name again?
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
This is the first time I live in a shelter.
Yeah. A lot of Latino here, so definitely some are migrants or undocumented.
I think. And me as a trans woman,
Yeah.
I feel safe.
Were you able to get the hormones or, you know?
Yeah, I did that with my doctor.
So Medi-Cal, you got the breast implants.
Yes.
Wow, taxpayer funded. So here in California, they gave you the breast implant here.
Yes.
Free.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Do you feel like that's a good benefit for other migrants here in California?
Yeah, even though you're undocumented, you can get it.
Did you do bottom too? Bottom surgery?
I'm waiting for that one.
Wow, you're waiting for bottom surgery. Okay. Are you happy with the results?
Yes.
Of course, because they got what they wanted and they got it for free. Of course. So this is the piece once again by Chris Ruffo and John Cho over at the New York or California Post. It says here, illegal aliens cross the border seeking free sex changes in California. Word has apparently traveled down the continent to the transgender communities in Mexico, Honduras, and elsewhere. If you make it all the way to California, the government will pay for your shelter, hormones, and surgeries, no questions asked. Last month, we received a report from a whistleblower who claimed that illegal aliens are staying in San Francisco's homeless shelters. Following up on the tip, we visited numerous publicly funded shelters in San Francisco and spoke to employees and residents about their policies and sometimes through a translator. We discovered that not only that the shelters were housing illegal immigrants, but also that they were apparently housing a population of male to female transgender illegal aliens who had hoped to obtain free gender-affirming care in California. And to our shock, the state and local governments apparently are providing it. St. Vincent de Paul's MSC South facility in San Francisco's largest homeless shelter, and in 2024 signed a $66 million service contract with the city. After we arrived at the front entrance, an employee wearing a do-rag and a light green polo shirt showed us around and confirmed that illegal aliens are living there. You got a few people here from El Salvador, you got a few people here from Venezuela, you got a few people here from little bit everywhere, he said. As a rule, he suggested management instructed employees to refuse cooperation with federal immigration authorities. When the ICE thing was going around, we all had a meeting and they told us we ain't letting them in. Among the shelter's residents was a group of Hondurans who identified as transgender. During our visit to MSC South, whose executive director did not respond to a request for comment, we spoke to two Honduran men, Laika and Alondra, who identified as transgender women. Both indicated that the local government gave them shelter and food. Anyway, I'm not going to read. You guys can read the rest of this story once again over there at the New York Post. But I want you to understand something. These are all, like, when we talk about state funding, when we talk about local funding, these are all cities. I mean, every state in Sacramento, I mean, in California, every Democrat-run state, every state that would provide city that would provide these services, they're all running deficits. Meaning they can't afford what they are providing, what they're supposed to be providing to their citizens. And yet they're providing free sex changes and hormones, because once you start taking the hormones, you got to stay on them. Sex changes and hormones and surgeries for illegal immigrants. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, I honestly do not know what to say to that. And why the people of San Francisco aren't losing their minds about it, I do not know. Although in part that they are, because they just kicked out their old mayor. So one has to believe that they're at least paying some attention to it. I don't know, but all I know is I find it to be just completely and utterly and absolutely nuts that they are doing this. This is a thing, that this is actually a thing, but it's San Francisco. Why should I be surprised? Anyway, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code of the rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your Hog Holster today. All of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. First one here, first headline, Mondami says city-run supermarket will be ready in 3 years, but recommends getting in line for bread now. Because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be a bunch of bread lines. Oh, this is a funny one. Pope, oh no, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the Pope quoting. Quote, "Do not fear mass Islamic migration," says Pope behind 40-foot walls of Vatican City fortress. Yeah, I pointed that out the other day that, you know, it's real easy to be against walls when you're behind them or when you're protected by them. Anyway, there's another one. SCOTUS rules death penalty is okay for people who post breaking and a siren emoji before every tweet. Yes, so many of these folks out there are putting these things out. It drives me nuts. I hate it when I see that. It makes it almost like I'm not going to pay any attention to any breaking news. And then finally, Trump complains he's being crucified for comparing himself to Jesus. Well, duh. All right. Yeah, that one right there is some funny stuff. All right, folks, well, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're getting one more quick shout out to our sponsors. First, we have the folks over at Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. We've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry holsters on the market, and that would be at hogholsters.com. That's HAWGholsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, we've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. That would be at uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's going to be it for today's program. We will be back tomorrow, once again here from Houston at the NRA 2026 annual meeting and exhibits. Y'all have fun, take care, and we will see you mañana.